Red Bedhead Beastie. That's me. 4 red, 5/6 Menace, Mountain Cycling 2. Alright, so this is like the black one, except I wanted that to have Menace, but it did. Menace at the turn you play this, it's less good because your opponent's late in the game is gonna have a lot of blockers. But I think this is about the D plus, seems like kind of a weak one. Like a white one seems kind of weak. Not too excited about the 6 mana, 5/6 Menace. And Mount Cycling 2 is expensive. Trader's Bargain. 1 red. Instant. Your additional cost is per sacrifice a creature and shop and pay 2. It is 5 damage to target creature if it die exiled instead. So 4 mana deal 5 exile. It's fine. It's like Agathis Assault except 1 mana more but 5 also. You also sacrifice a creature enchantment at instant speed. I think this makes this card pretty good. Because sometimes you're gonna respond to a removal spell by killing your opponent's stuff, and sometimes you're just gonna pay 4. If you play a room where you have no use for the other side, you can pay 2 mana too. So I think it's a C+. It seems like a fine card. But these types of cards have gone down a little bit. It's like only kill one creature for a little bit more than you would want to pay for it. Boiler Bilious Ripper, 4 red for a 4/4. When it enters, you may sacrifice another creature enchantment. It deals 2 damage to any target. So you can kill creatures with this, but you have to pay a little bit of a price. Card seems okay. I remember there was a card from Outlaws, was like a 5/4 who did this. That card was just okay. This one has 1 less power. And that thing I think dealt 3 too. I think this is a C. Doesn't seem like a great card. I think that 2 damage is not that much, and you may not get to kill the relevant stuff. But you can go phase, which I think the card from Murders couldn't do. Oh, maybe it could. But anyway, I think it's just a C. It seems like a fine card. And if there are sacrifice payoffs in black-red, that could bump it up a little bit. Maybe to a C+ then. Chainsaw. We have a rare equipment here. 1 red. And when it enters, it deals 3 damage up to 1 target creature. So already it's a good card. It doesn't have to do much for it to be good. Whenever one or more creatures die, you get a count. This gets a rev counter on it. And it gets +6 or so in some rev counters on it. Yeah, I mean the equipment side is not that great, but you are getting 2 mana deal 3. And eventually you're gonna stack up some counters. And I kinda wish this gave trample, but it seems good. It seems like a C+, B-. Doesn't strike me as a bomb because I think the equipment side is gonna grow a little too slow for this card to have a super meaningful equipment. But it is nice you can play this and then it stays into play and then eventually you can equip it. You don't have to equip it right away. So maybe B-, I think though. Oh, we have a room here. Shard Foyer, 3 red. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library and play this card. Kind of nice. I mean, you're getting to draw an extra card every turn. Because on turn 5, when you start to do this, you can probably play most cards in your deck. So that would be a card I would be kind of interested in. Kind of slow, but I think I would give that like a C+, B-, something like that. It also has Warped Space, 4 red. Once each turn you may pay 0, then play the mana cost for a spell you cast from exile. So that you can do. Let's say you exile like a 4-drop. You can pay this, and then you cast that card instead of paying 4, you pay 6, but then from then on you will maybe be able to double spell. I don't think the other side is gonna bump this up to more like a B, but I think it's a B-. Seems like a good card. You play this, you get to draw an extra card every turn. And then the other side, I mean, if nothing else, you can like get some room payoffs maybe on top of like having 4 mana, get to draw an extra card. I think it's a B- though. It's solid, but these kind of cards can be kind of, if you're like aggressive and you play this, the turn you take off, your opponent gets to stabilize, and in fact, if you draw extra card, your opponent may have a game plan that doesn't matter how many cards you draw. The fact that you gave them breathing room may be the death knell. But anyway, good card, I think, in most times. Clockwork Percussionist, so it's like a drummer then. Red for a 1/1 haste. When it dies, you exile the top card of your library and play it until the end of your next turn. They have like All these weird, like they change either next turn or end of your next turn. But I think this card is good. It's a 1/1 for 1 that when it dies you get to draw a card most of the time. It's gonna be hard for you not to cast the card. Only thing is if you trade this off on turn like 2, you may not get to play the card if you exile like a fireball. But I think it's a C+, seems like a good card. I mean, I would be very happy to play it. It also is an artifact, so if you like Black Red has some Delirium pay up, that could be good. But I like 1/1s for 1 that draw me a card at some point. Cursed Recording, 2 red for an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant resources play, you put a time counter on it. Then if it has 7 more time counters on it, remove those counters, it is 20 damage to you. But you can tap it, and when you cast the next instant resource, you copy that spell. So I guess the idea is if you cast it 7 times, you lose. But you have gotten a lot of value from this card, though. So it is powerful. You get to double up on like all removal spell or the card draw spells. I think in the right blue-red deck, this could be a good card. Mostly it's an F, but in a blue-red dedicated spell deck, you can play it like a B. And it's a little awkward that at some point you may not be able to play any more spells. That's a little awkward, but hopefully I've won the game before then. Diversion Specialist, 3 in red for 4/3 menace. You can pay 1, sacrifice another creature enchantment, exile the top card of your library, and play it this turn. Solid card. I mean, a 4/3 menace for 4 beats down pretty good, and then you can sacrifice expendable cards, triggering all the sacrifice payoffs. Seems like a B- to me. Alright, see here. We have. Oops. A bit of a hiccup here. We have Enduring Courage. So this is like the cycle that comes back as an enchantment. 2 red, 3/3. Whenever a creature you control enters, gains +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. And with that it comes back. This card seems good. It's like the white one seems very good because it gives all your other creatures like a buff and can attack right away. And if this trades off, you still get that effect. You need to have more creatures after this, but in a creature heavy deck that shouldn't be too hard. Seems like a B+, slightly worse than the white one, which I think is the best one so far. But this card seems like it's gonna push a lot of damage. And if your opponent's not gonna get out of it with a regular removal spell, necessarily. Fear of Being Hunted, 1 red for a 4/2 haste, and it must be blocked. That doesn't strike me as a super good card. I don't think the ability matters because your opponent wants to trade for this anyway. But I guess if your opponent's got only a 1/1 in play, this eats that for sure. A 4/2 haste hits pretty hard, but also it gets blocked pretty easily. I think this is a C-, doesn't strike me as a good card. Just gets traded off too easily. Fear of Burning Alive. Well, who doesn't have fear of burning alive? Doesn't everyone have fear of that? 4 red, 4/4. When it enters, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. Okay. And Delirium, whenever a source you control is non-combat damage to opponent, you get to deal that much to a creature. So if you got Delirium when you cast this, you get to deal 4 damage to a creature and 4 damage to a player. In either case, it deals 4 to your opponent, so it still has some value. It's almost like it has haste and a little haste unblockable the turn it comes into play. I think this card is good, and I don't necessarily need to be Delirium for me to want this, but I just need to get to Delirium some amount of the time. It's not the kind of card where the only way it's playable is if you got Delirium every time. It can get Delirium 25% of the time. I think it's a C+, and it's gonna finish games. And also, if you got other ways to deal non-combat damage to opponents, which is actually sources, doesn't have to be a spell. This can turn into like an engine, almost. Fear of Missing Out. 1 red for 2/3. When it enters, discard a card and draw a card. Nice, that's a good start. I mean, it's a 2/3 for 2 that gets you to rummage, and that's if you got an empty hand, I think you get to draw a card. Delirium, you get to untap a creature when this attacks and get an additional combat phase. So you don't get to attack with everything unless you got a bunch of vigilance creatures. This card seems rock solid. I mean, a 2/3 for 2 that rummages when it comes to place a card I would be very happy with, and that has some extra ability. think it's a B. It's also nice later in the game you have empty hand and you top deck this, you get to just draw a card. Alright, a room. Glass works. 2 and a red. When you unlock this room, it is 4 damage to a creature and put. So it's like an Agatha's Assault, but you also can be 4 and a red in the beginning of your end step. This room is 1 damage to each opponent. Seems solid. It also, if you top deck this and your opponent's got no creatures in play or bad creatures, you can just play the 5-mana version, start dinging your opponent, and once your opponent presents you with a good target, you can pay that. Also, you kill something early and then later in the game you got nothing else to do. You play this. It seems like a C+. Seems way better than Agatha's Assault just because you're gonna have some extra utility later in the game. And that's nice to have this like hard to deal with win condition. Very slow win condition, but a win condition nonetheless. Grab the prize. 1 and a red. This is from the movie It, maybe. As an initial cast a spell, discard a card, you draw 2 cards, and if this card wasn't a land card, it is 2 damage to your opponent. Yeah, right. I mean, it's a little bit of burn sometimes. A lot of the time you are discarding a land, so then it's just a tormenting voice, but it is nice to ding your opponent a little bit. I think it's nothing more than like a C-, but as usual with these types of cards, if you got Graveyard, Delirium, it's good with Delirium, discard a land or 2 types to get Delirium. But there's no payoff on drawing extra cards, I don't think. Maybe there's a blue-red prowess deck, probably not. It's like a C-. Hand that feeds 1 on red for a 2/2. Delirium gets +2/+0 and gains menace when it attacks. Yeah, mediocre. Doesn't even have any good types. It doesn't help you with Delirium, just get a little bit of a bonus. And it's not gonna have Delirium early in the game where that ability would matter. So I think it's like a D+, pretty mediocre. But sometimes you red aggro deck wants a 2-mana 2/2, and then it can be like a C- maybe. Just don't think the ability is very relevant. Impossible Inferno, 4 and a red for an instant. This 6-time target creature. Delirium, you get to exile the top card of your library and play it until the end of your next turn. So if you got Delirium, you get to draw a card, but it still is 5 mana, deal 6, which is very expensive. I think it's another C-, kind of like, yeah. I mean, sometimes these type of cards only deal 5, and this one deals 6, and it's an instant, but you're not going to get to draw the cards too often, and even then it's very clunky. So C-. Infernal Phantom for red for 2/3, Eerie. So now we have a red Eerie card out of nowhere. It gets +2/+0, and when it dies, its damage equals its power to any target. Oh, okay. You sold me with the last one. Because a 4-mana 2/3 that dies deals 2 is okay, but then you play Eerie card, you attack as a 4/3, and if your opponent trades, it suddenly deals 4. Okay, I think we are looking at a C+ here. Like a Pitchburn Devils, sometimes worse, sometimes better. And let me tell you, when you play against Pitchburn Devils, it's a very scary card to play against. It almost is worse to play against it than it is good to play with it, because your opponent always has to respect this card. But you who play with it, you never have an Eerie card, right? So it's just bad, but your opponent doesn't know it. Anyway, I'm gonna give it a C+. It seems good. Irreverent Gremlin, not Irrelevant Gremlin. 1 red for a 2/2, Menace. When another creature you control power 2 or less enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card, though it's only once each turn. Alright, seems okay. Good with Delirium and 2. And a 2/2 Menace for 2 is solid. I would give this a C+. I think a 2/2 Menace for 2 is about a C+, and I don't think the ability is going to make it that much better. Anyway, okay, we have a Leyland. Can we finally find a Leyland which is playable? 2 red. Okay. Starts with it in play if you have it in your opening hand. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single creature you control, copy that spell. Probably not playable, but if you have like the blue one mana card that makes a creature unblockable, draw a card. We could be onto something there. I mean, there's probably an F, but there could be like some blue-red deck with a bunch of the 1-mana draw card, make a creature unblockable. Because then this is going to replace itself, and you're going to get 2 creatures unblockable. course, the awkward part is that sometimes you're gonna not have this in your opinion. So probably an F, but I could maybe see like a build around C plus in some weird blue-red deck. Probably not. Most valuable Slayer, 3 and a red for a 2/4. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. And this could be this card itself. There's no heroic or what was it called from the last set? Valiant here, but it does attack as a 3/4 first strike. You can pump other stuff. Seems mediocre though, seems like a C minus, not great. I just think a 4 mana 3/4 first strike only on attacks is not that good of a card. Norin, the old coward. No, Norin Swift Survivor is red for a 2/1. It can't block, which makes sense. And whenever a creature control becomes blocked, you may exile it. You may play that card from exile this turn. Doesn't seem good. How do you abuse that? If you attack with a creature with a good interplay ability, your opponent probably don't want to block it. So they have to take it. That's kind of nice. This is on a 2/1 for 1 red that can't block. And some aggressive red decks would play this just as a 1 mana 2/1. And there are spots when you're gonna attack with a creature with a good comes to play effect and your opponent can't really block it because you just exile it and do it again. So there are some stuff here. I think mostly we're looking at a C. But in an aggressive deck with some comes into play effects, it's like a C+. Pretty bad when you're behind though, but you are playing. This is a 1 mana card, so I think it's a C+. Though. I wouldn't build around it because sometimes your opponent is in a spot where you can just ignore your comes into play cards when they attack and raise back. So I wouldn't build around it. I would mostly look to be a red aggressive deck. Overlord of the Boiler Bilges. We have an impending card here. 4 red, red, 5/5. Impending 4 for 4. So this is one of the more expensive impending costs we've seen. But when it enters or attacks, this 4 damage to any target. Alright. Oh yeah, this card is great. It's a 6 mana 5/5 deal 4, including face, or impending 4 deal 4. And then you can attack and deal 4. And as with all these impending cards, if you get to attack a lot of the times, maybe I should take back the thing I said about the blue flyer, because a flyer is more likely to be able to attack than a 5/5 ground creature. But anyway, I think this is an A, about the same as the white one. Seems like an absurd card, like a Inferno Titan almost. Slightly worse in some sense because I rather spread out 3 damage and deal 4. And I'd rather have a 6/6 than a 5/5 with fire breathing, but we have the impending cost too, so I think it's an A. And all these overlord cards are almost all insane. I think the only one that was a little modest was maybe the black one. That was still insane. I bet the green one's gonna put lands into play. Alright, room here. Painter's Studio, 2 and a red. When you unlock this store, exile the top 2 cards of your library and pay them until the end of your next turn. Oh, that's good. I mean, it's like a Ren's Resolve or the card from Crimson WoW. But 1 mana more. But it has Defaced Gallery 1 or red. Whenever you attack, attacking creature you control gain +1/+0 until end of turn. Very powerful. I mean, all your creatures +1/+0 is pretty good. These effects kind of work against each other. You have this like 3 mana draw too, and then you have this that pumps up your creatures. But I think this card is good. It's just not insane. I will give it like a B minus. I think it's it's also nice. You can play this on turn 2, pump something, and then later in the game we got nothing to do. You can flip the 3 mana. So it's not even clear that you want to play the 3 mana first. You can also play the 2 mana first. And then the 3 mana helps you find more creatures. So I think it's a B minus. Piggy Bank, 1 red for a 3/2. When it dies, you get a treasure. Good. I mean, red doesn't usually get 2 mana 3/2s. And when this dies, you get a treasure to enable you to play cards early. If you cast this card on turn 2, you're gonna probably get them attacks in because your opponent don't want to trade and give you access to like a 4-drop on turn 3. Seems like a B minus, really good card. And also later in the game you get a trade and get a treasure, so that's some value. B minus seems like a very threatening card in your opening hand. Oh man, Pyroclast, 1 red. This 2 damage to each creature. So it's hard to say how good this card is because I don't know the format. It doesn't seem great because I have seen a lot of more beefy cards, but there are matchups where it's going to be great. I think I would start it in my sideboard, unless I were some sort of controlling deck. Maybe I'm blue-red with like the 5 and a blue draw 5. So I think it's a sideboard B. It could be absurd. But honestly, this card is not even that much better than like a 3-mana deal too, because this is not the kind of card you cast on turn 2 that often. But the nice thing is you can cast it on turn 2 on the draw and like trade 1 for 1. So maybe you could main deck it, but I would mostly look into side this in against a deck with small creatures. Seems pretty good against black-red, for example. So it's like a sideboard B, but I would probably leave like a D in a vacuum. Because there are matchups where it does nothing almost. Ragged Playmate, 1 red for a 2/2 artifact creature toy. I have to say that red has a lot of artifact creatures, so Delirium may be a pretty good fit for red. You can pay 1 and tap target creature power 2 less can't be blocked this turn. Alright, that's not terrible. I mean, it's a 2/2 for 2 that has a little bit of relevance in a late game. You can start dealing opponent 2. Seems like a C to me. In a Delirium deck, it probably is even a little better because you can get an artifact. Rampaging Soul Rage, 2 and a red for a 1/4. It gets +3/+0 as long as there are 2 or more unlocked doors among rooms. This card seems bad though, because you have to have 2 rooms in play, because whenever you cast a room, you have to unlock one. So having 2 rooms in play means that this is a 3-mana 4/4, which is good, but you have to wait. So I think this is a D. Seems pretty mediocre to me. Razorkin Hordecaller, 4 and a red for 4/4 haste. Whenever you attack, you get a 1/1 red Gremlin token. And that's not tapped on attacking, which I said before, it's usually an advantage. The card seems good because this also doesn't have attack by itself, but it often will. But you can also, if you got other creatures, send them in, get a 1/1, and then slow roll this if this. Maybe your opponent's got like a 1/1 Death Touch in play. But it seems like a B- to me. Reminds me a little bit of Eomer, although that card was a 5/4, I think. Razorkin Needlehead, red for a 2/2. It has first strike during your turn. Whenever an opponent draws a card, deals 1 damage to them. Ooh, this card seems very good. I mean, it's awkward as double red, but if you cast this on turn 2, your opponent probably almost have to kill it because it's gonna deal like 5 or 6 damage over the course of the game. Especially if your opponent draws extra cards really painful. It also attacks as a 2/2. If I'm heavy red, it seems like a B. If I'm like having 9 red sources in my deck, it goes down to like a C+, because then you may not be able to cast it on turn 2. But this is still relevant on turn 4, but way less relevant because it's not going to be able to attack and it's going to deal less damage. So like C+, but if I'm heavy red, it's more like a B. Because then if it comes down on turn 2, it's really good. Ripchain Razorkin, 3 and red for a 5/3 reach, 2 and red sacrifice a land, draw a card. I don't love this card. I don't like a 5/3 reach that much because I'd rather have my reach creatures be 4/5s or 2/4s. I don't want them to be low toughness because I'm looking to hold off a medium-sized flyer. This one trades with a 3/3 flyer. It's nice to sacrifice land, draw cards, helps with delirium, but it seems like a C-, pretty mediocre. But it's like kind of card you can play in your deck and it's not absolutely terrible. It also attacks pretty good if everyone doesn't have a block. The Roller Crusher Ride. X2 red for a legendary enchantment. Delirium. If a source you control did non-combat summon to a permanent, it deals double that damage instead. When it ends, it's X damage is X target creature. So it's like Bonfire, except it's a little worse. If you don't have Delirium, it's not that good of a card, I don't think. Let's say you spend 5 mana, you get to deal 2/2 creatures. That's not that good of a deal. I guess 6 mana is where it gets good. And if you got Delirium, it's very good. But the trick is to get Delirium. In a Delirium deck, it seems like a B+. If you can get Delirium, it seems like a C+. C, kind of expensive, but the trick is to get Delirium. Also, I guess the nice thing is that this stays into play and will make further sources, not creatures, but sources that deal damage more. It also doubles to players. But this card by itself can't hit players, which is a big knock because you can't finish the game. But in a Delirium deck, it's like a B+. Scorching Dragonfire, so reprint. 1 red deals freedom to our creature planeswalkers and would exile. Seems like a C+. Not gonna get higher than that because about C+ is what this type of card gets these days. Alright. But we have seen some cards that have die triggers, so it's kind of nice that this exiles them. Screaming Nemesis, 2 red for 3/3 haste. Good start. When it is stealth damage, it is as much damage to any other target. If a player is damaged this way, then can't gain life for the rest of the game. Wow! So 3/3 haste for free that when it's stealth damage, it's like a Boros Reckoner. Wow. Yeah, this card seems like an A. A 3/3 haste for free that if your opponent trades for it, they probably get 2 for 1. If your opponent blocks with a big creature, they take a lot of damage and you can't gain life for the rest of the game. Which is a minor thing, but it does matter sometimes. Seems like an A, fantastic card. I mean, Boros Reckoner was great, and this card seems like... I mean, it can't gain lifelink. Or was it first strike? Anyway, Boros Reckoner was sick, and I think this card is too. Oh, we have a room. Ticker Booth, 2 in a red. When you unlock this room door, manifest red. Okay, Frame and manifest red is not great, but the other side says Tunnel of Hate. That's an intense name. 4 red, red. Instead of Tunnel of Love, we get Tunnel of Hate. Whenever you attack target attacking creature against double strike at the end of turn. Expensive, but kind of good. This card seems okay. It's kind of slow, but I think it's about a C. Doesn't seem like a great card, a little clunky, but it does some good things. And if you manifest dread something, you have the option of giving that double strike, and your opponent doesn't know what it is, so my opponent may feel obliged to block it, which can be awkward. Trial of Agony, red mana for a sorcery. Choose 2 target creature controlled by the same opponent. That player chooses one of those creatures. It deals 5 damage to that creature, and the other can't block this turn. So it's like a edict, except a little better because the creature can't block, but worse because your opponent gets to sacrifice. Your opponent needs to have 2 creatures in play, so you can't cast. Like sometimes you can edict on turn 2. You can't do this with this. But you're getting some bonus off the can't block side. I think all in all it's about a C. Not that great, but playable. Turn Inside Out. Red. Target creature get +3/+0 until end of turn. When this dies this turn, manifest red. I bet you this card's gonna see play in standard with this slick got show off for cards. Anyway, seems decent. I mean, you're trading up and then you're getting a manifest red. These cards almost always perform a little worse in limited. Constructed, I think it's about a C-, but you can play it. Untimely Malfunction, run on red, instant. Choose 1 to start target artifact, changes target spell. 1 or 2 creatures can't box. The middle mode is the powerful mode because you can change the target of target spell. You can, like, if your opponent casts a removal spell on your creature, you can redirect it to their creature. That's pretty sick. That's just 2 mana. And other modes are useful too. I think we're looking at a good card. I think it's about a B-. It looks like a very powerful card. It's the middle mode. And then you have other versatile stuff on top of that, because we saw a lot of artifacts in red, and this card just blows up those. Vengeful Possession, 2 in a red. You act of treason, and you can discard a card, draw a card. In black red, it's like a C+, I think, and in other decks, it's not that good. But we have seen some cards that sacrifice cards. Vicious Clown. 2 in a red for 2/3. Whenever a creature can control power 2 or less enters, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Seems somewhat similar to the 2/2 Menace, but a little worse. Seems like a C. But attacking as a 4/3 is kind of nice. Violent Urge, red mana for an instant. Target creature get +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Delirium. That creature gains double strike. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that much better than a Kindled Fury. I know it's gonna finish the game sometimes, but Delirium is kind of late in the game. Seems like an C-, kind of mediocre. Walls of Rage. We have a rare here. Last red card for you. Red. Target creature you control is damage equal to its power to each other creature. Until end of turn, whenever a creature you control dies, exile the top card of the library. You may play it until the end of your next turn. Wow, this card seems sick. It's like a Dune Blast almost. But, I mean, you need to have a big creature. But you get to, ideally you get to like Dune Blast, and even if you kill some of your stuff, you get to draw some extra cards. So it's a build run. You want some big creatures with this. Like with this card, I could see playing like the 5/3 Reach. Because the 5/3 Reach is a card that's not completely embarrassing to play, and you want something that has a high power. But it seems like a build around A. Seems like it could be a completely insane like Dune Blast with even more upside. But you have to build around it. You have to have a lot of creatures, and they have to be somewhat big.